Well, I think it's supposed to be more, let's talk about the factors they looked at and what we kind of do or don't know about them.
Sure.
Well, I think it's supposed to be. All right. Let me oh, YouTube's doing that thing again where it doesn't give me the chat. Let me refresh YouTube and hopefully they give me the chat here. There it is. YouTube, you've gone downhill. What's going on? All right, saying hello in the chat. Ask questions. If you remember last time, you guys didn't ask questions, so we got to take the day off early.
Everything.
So if you want your questions answered, you got to ask them. So you've been warned. If you don't ask questions, we cut the show early. So they don't have to be on topic. They can. We like them on topic or off topic, whatever you need to know. We're here to help you. We're an open book. So you want to know the super secret thing? All you have to do is know how to specifically ask for it in a way that we know what you mean.
I wouldn't do it. If you're going to have 40,000 pages, that's
Let's see. Glad I stopped that because I feel like Honey was about to reveal a secret.
She was,
Anytime
but
you're about to do 40,000 anythings, that's usually a line you don't want to air on the show.
yeah, she's on another call, so I'll be having to monitor that for a few minutes.
Yeah, I don't blame you if you go mute on that convo. All right. You can't ask about that. That's outside my ability to answer. I don't talk about other people's methods, just my own stuff. All right. So today we are going to uh, continue the topic we had last time, which is the SEMRush factor study. So last time, if you didn't catch it, we went into how the study was performed, and we talked about how those choices and how they did the study impacted the data and the assumptions we could make on the data. And so we were not trying to, slam them or throw them under the bus. We brought up like legitimate concerns, and our hope was twofold. The lesser one that they could take it and do better next time, constructive criticism. But odds are they never saw it, never will. So that's wishful thinking at its best. The other one is so that you, the viewer, can be more discerning and skeptical in all studies you review. And so you kind of look at how they're done and try to understand what you can actually learn from it versus what they're trying to sell you. And so today we're going to go over the factors in the study. So before we went over how the study was done, today we're going to look at what they looked at specifically and what we know about what they looked at. And so it should be a fun one. All right. So with that, a couple things to mention here. Uh, First of all, Magic PR is our sponsor. So if you need a press release, check them out. We'll be talking more about press releases later in the season. So it's kind of the theme of the year is press releases. So we're going to talk about them a lot. But it's not today's topic. But if you need a press release, can talk to us about it. Just hit us up offline. I'll tell you what I know. All right, Lee. What the
Yes.
heck is going on, man?
Well, we got the next one. Next tested SEO training is coming Valentine's Day. So, if people are interested, they can hit me up on Skype. They can go to testedseotraining.com to get the information. I'm excited about the next one because we keep making little iterations and things like that make the training more fun as well as just educational. And we've got some good people coming in, so it's going to be a good time.
And so the question I'd ask you, the public, will you be Lee's Valentine? Let's find out.
You're trying to tank sales, sir. That's just killing it now. All right, I'll do another one later. This one's over. Fun's over. But it is a good time. I was talking to people about it at the conference this weekend, and it's interesting to compare people's notes on different trainings, different platforms, different courses, different things. So it's a good time.
Awesome. So check it out. I've been in it just about every time you've done it, I think.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, it's always a good group of really smart people. So I'm impressed by it. Go check out the website. Maybe it's for you, maybe it's not. Okay, either way. It's not for everyone. You need to be in a certain place in your SEO journey to even be allowed in. Because he doesn't want to waste people's time, and he doesn't want to deal with the headaches. It's either you're in a place where you really can use this or you're not. And so
Yeah,
check it out, see if it's for you. If it's not, no worries, no hard feelings. It's
exactly.
probably not for most. So we'll put it that way. All right. So SEO spring training is coming up. So it's a really great conference. Check it out. I am not attending this year. I have a family commitment on the same dates. I'm hoping to come back to it next year, but the speaker lineup this year is making me have lots of regret about having family conflicts on the same dates. So it's a good lineup. Every time I've gone, it's been an amazing conference. The way I like to view it is the timing's great if you need to get one last big expense in for your business. What a great expense, like top-notch expense for an agency or a successful consultancy that doesn't have enough expenses. Um, you'll learn a lot, you'll network a lot, all within your industry, your peers. If you're good at what you do, you'll probably walk away with clients even. And the secrets at the bar at this conference are top notch. So, what do you think of this conference, Lee?
Yeah, I love it. I've had conversations with people at the last two conferences that I've attended, and I'm just going to share this. SEOs largely were introverts. We like sitting behind our computers quietly and just doing that. And the thought of peopling is just, not something we want to do. But I can tell you that all the people that are in my network, I've met largely at conferences, probably 95% of them at conferences. And so if you're in a place where you want to learn more SEO and things like that, come to the conference, but interact, even especially with the speakers and things like that. They love sharing their knowledge, and you're going to pick up so much stuff if you just have that little bit of courage to just jump in a group. There's a group at the bar sitting around a particular table or standing in on the corner of the bar. Go in there, sit, start talking with people, and you will be amazed at how much stuff you can pick up that you can't by just sitting back and watching YouTube videos, for example. So I encourage people just to go get there, build your network, uh, meet other SEOs, because there's a lot of people just like you out there, and they don't like talking either. But it's better you have a lot of those shared experiences and a lot of really cool SEO stuff to talk about and exchange ideas. So go.
Awesome. All right. So with that, let me stop. Let's see, where is it? Over here. I'll end that one. And let's go to this document. All right. So this document is the SEMrush ranking factors for 2024. Uh, you should go get that from SEMrush. You can Google for it. It'll rank. Yeah, go get it from them if you want to browse it. I wouldn't want to steal their traffic to their website. That's why they do this. So I will direct you to them to go get a copy for yourself. And With that, we went through a lot of the setup stuff, so we're just going to kind of jump to the factors and start talking about the factors. And the one we kind of touched on last time was the only one that achieves significance in the statistics. So this is a study that has one significant factor, and that's the text relevance. So your overall degree of some kind of keyword usage on page. So they have a definition, but I still have questions. It's hard to know exactly what they did, even with the definitions they give, because they said it's kind of about exact match, and it's kind of about the variations, and it's kind of a TF-IDF thing, and there's a lot of wiggle room in definitions like that. So it's not like they gave us an actual formula with coefficients of how things were weighted or calculated on this. Maybe they did and I missed it, but I didn't see it. It was just a written definition. So I think we all feel that relevant text on page is an obvious good thing to do. Anybody oppose this as a factor?
No.
Yeah, so didn't think so. Thought that was a slam dunk. Their next one was traffic, and we know that in local, traffic has some pretty strong effects, but my experience with traffic in like normal web search is, it kind of helps with indexing, but it doesn't do a whole lot in terms of ranking power. What's your feeling on it, Lee?
Well, this is where I'm going to go off on a little mini rant on this one, because a lot of times, and I don't remember whether or not they did this in their conclusions on the study, but a lot of times you can have factors that correlate and then people think are causal. And, that's not necessarily the way that it works. Because right here, because all they were looking at is the top 20, we know that the top 10 are going to get most of the damn clicks. So if you're ranking, in positions 1, 2, or 3, you're going to get the traffic from those keywords. You're going to get the clicks from those trees. You're going to get the traffic. So traffic at a minimum is a result of rankings. Now, can it cause rankings too? Maybe. There's a lot of testing and a lot of things out there that, that suggest, yes or no, depending on, how the studies were done or how the tests were done. But I don't like it when people just sit there and say, this is a factor because it correlates. Because in this particular case, this particular factor, and there's a lot of them like this, it's also the result of high rankings. And since they're only looking at the high ranking sites, it's like high ranking sites have traffic. Well, duh. Of course they have traffic. They're high ranking, But if I have a brand new website and I manage to get high traffic to it, does that mean it's going to be high ranking? The jury's out on that as far as, most of the studies that I've seen. So,
Yeah, and philosophically, I've always had a problem with traffic as an input because that's the desired output. And so I don't want to use the output as one of the inputs. The whole goal is to do things so that you can get the thing you don't have. So I don't want the thing I don't have to be a required piece to get the thing I don't have.
right.
So yeah, it it turns out though in local SEO, it does cause at least temporary impacts. And
Yeah,
so there is a case where using the output as the input has shown some results.
sure.
Um, I've heard a lot of cautionary tales out of doing that. But to say it isn't wired at all in on the map search side would be untrue. But this wasn't a map search study, so this is a organic web search study,
Right.
and it's saying that organic traffic helps you rank, or implying that organic traffic helps you rank.
And that's the thing that that gets, because there are a number of factors, and we'll go through and talk about a number of them, but there are some of these which are the result of high rankings, or there is a secondary factor that drives both, the factor that they're showing and the rankings. So, we have to be very, very careful about our interpretation, and people tend to be very, very sloppy about this. They look at this and say, okay, the most important factor is text relevance. The second most important factor is traffic. I'm like, no, that's not the way that works. You have to understand the dynamics at play here before you can even think about causality.
And if traffic works at a page level, then it's probably going to work at a domain level. So it's kind of like you got the same factor twice.
Right.
Um,
but here's the other thing. This is where the domain's organic traffic at the domain level, if you've got a ton of traffic at the domain, you tend to have, generally speaking, lots of pages ranking for lots of keywords. We tend to call those authority sites. The authority sites also tend to have high DA. They tend to have a high number of backlinks,
high number of internal links.
Exactly. So you start to have this chicken and egg puzzle about, which ones of those are the effects and which ones of those are the causes. And people get very, very sloppy with their interpretations of that. They'll say, look at this correlation. It's statistically significant, therefore causal. Or, and then there's people that are the correlation, causation, correlation, not necessarily, doesn't necessarily imply that. Also true for these reasons, because the correlation says there looks to be a relationship between these two, and people jump to conclusions about what that relationship is.
Yeah, they assume causal. Yeah.
Yeah. So
this next one kind of boggles my mind. So the URL's organic positions in the top 20.
This one bothered me.
And
this one really bothered me.
So I looked this up lower in the document, and this URL's organic positions, according to the definition they provided, is the number of times the URL appeared in the top 20. All right. And they're correlating it with the position on the SERP. So the number of times the URL appeared in the top 20 and the position on the SERP. Well, it's a URL in the top 20, right? Those each happen once. So the measurement value is always 1. And when that happens, we get one of these. So was number 1 in the top 20? Yes. Was number 2 in the top 20? Yes. Was number 3 in the top 20? Yes. Or once. So number of times. So how many times was number 1 in the top 20? 1. How many times was number 2 in the top 20? 1. And so it's just once.
And they only checked the top 20.
Yeah.
So it's not like they checked the top 100 and then said how many were in the top 20.
So how did a correlation of this factor, the number of times the URL appeared in the top 20, get a 0.22?
There is another way, possibly, because sometimes you can see something in the top 20 have the featured snippet and the organic placement.
Yeah, but that's a problem, because the featured snippet is not an organic web search result. It is governed by different algorithms, different selection criteria. We've even seen featured snippets pulled from pages 3+. So it's not necessarily top ranking content. And in this study, if they're treating that result that came from page 4 as if it is the best ranking content, they're going to throw off all their correlations, especially if that number 30, number 40 result is being compared to top 20 content.
Mm-hmm.
So that, if they did that, you're right. Some of the time you'll get the same URL twice because of featured snippet and left in the top 20. And usually when that happens, Google has a limiter that will take you out of page 1, out of top 10. So when we're getting these, it's with page 2 content being in that featured snippet position.
The other thing is, I thought maybe, and looking at this, maybe this is a typo, and it should be domains organic positions in the top 20. So you could
They
have.
have that as a separate factor.
Yeah, that's lower down on the list. That's under domain authority score.
All right.
So
I retract my guess.
I thought the same thing and I checked. So yeah, this one I am going to say is either bad data, so featured snippet handling, or bad definitions. It isn't what they said it was. And so I do believe they calculated a 0.22 correlation on something. I'm just not certain we know what it is they correlated. So that one I'm, and it's, how is it actionable? Like, how on earth would you get to the same URL 2 or more times in the top 20?
I don't even understand the concept of the factor. Like we check the top 20 factor, we check the top 20 ranking URLs, and we found that URLs that ranked in the top 20 correlate with URLs that rank in the top 20. Like it's breaking my brain a little bit by how circular the logic is.
Yeah, it's a weird factor. So that's why I think there's a definition problem or a data handling problem. All right. So, domain occurrences of star ratings. So this is an interesting one because you can have two URLs from the same domain typically if the rest of the results have quality issues. And both of those could conceivably be showing aggregate rating stars from your schema. I really like aggregate rating stars as a factor. This factor here, especially for ecom, is awesome. It's amazing. It wins clicks. It is the most sought after thing you can do in ecom SEO is get your stars on your products. So as a factor, I love it and I know what it does to click-through rate. And so yeah, I think it's undervalued based on how they did their study. I'm surprised it's a 0.22 actually, because at times they are so strict about letting you have it. So it's a complicated one because of Google's strictness and awarding the stars. But yeah, it's one I would go after this factor in ecom 100%. Even if I failed and Google didn't give it to me and they're like, sorry, you're out, I'd still do it just in case. So this one's a big factor, belongs in the study. What do you think about it, Lee?
I'm not sure because there are certain domains that have a propensity to get this. So I'm wondering if this is like, we always say if there were a factor has Yelp in domain name, it's going to correlate highly in local, but that doesn't mean you should, put Yelp in your domain name. I'm wondering if this is, presence of Amazon is really what this measures.
Well, I've for the most part seen that with the small retailers, the ones we help day in and day out, when they try hard to get this, they often get it. So it's not a reach to win it. but
Right.
it often doesn't come easy. You have to do a lot to get it.
But in a correlational study where we don't have access to the data, if I'm looking at this and say, hey, if we said this was scattered across, hundreds and hundreds of domains, great. If it's, 90% concentrated in Amazon, you know,
Yeah,
Amazon is not necessarily ranking because of the star ratings. So it's again, we'd want to see a little bit more of the data, have a little more explanation about what that distribution looks like before making conclusions. But I do
and
agree with your logic there. I just don't understand the underlying data to know whether this would lend itself
yeah,
to.
and it doesn't. Like this result is totally inconclusive that this does anything at all. And I'm here saying I will do this 100% of the time, no matter what.
Mhm.
So
And,
those are very different stances.
and this is a great example of a quote unquote factor, or more specifically, a correlation where the factor may be something other than the star rating. So star ratings may not get you better rankings. Star ratings almost definitely get you better click-through rate, which
Mhm.
may be what's giving you the better ranking. Um, I don't know. Like, so if someone were to look at this and say, we need star ratings every place, I'd say, well, maybe. But maybe we just need better click-through rates. Maybe we can do something else. So if you're not in a niche, like an e-commerce niche that gives you star ratings, maybe you can find something else like the old FAQ schema that would give you a better click-through
Right.
rate.
Or the old exploits for getting a trust shield or a green check mark into your search result. Because that draws the eye. It does the same thing the stars do, and it lends the credibility. Oh, they have a secure shield. They're trustworthy.
Mhm.
Same type of thing.
And I mean,
Um,
in all fairness, there's one other thing I want to say here. If we're looking at this strictly as a study, there's only one factor we needed to talk about. That was text relevance, because, if we're looking at the strictness of it, none of the rest of this matters based on this particular study. But we have the benefit of having other studies and other tests in our back pocket to know a little something about, some of these factors anyway, and, how they might work. So, in Ted's case, he's got a long career in ecom that he had where crap like this worked like a charm. So he
and still
knows.
does. Still does. The other thing is if you're starting from scratch, use a trust signal as your logo design. So make your logo prototype a yellow star, because that way your fave icon is a yellow star and you always have a yellow star in your search result, and people are kind of programmed by yellow stars. And so, there are ways to game this even when you can't win it. Um, all right. So, domain authority. And this one I'm shocked they got an inconclusive on. Isn't this their own internal metric? Like I recall this one correlating better than this.
Yeah, but it does correlate better if you have 100 SERP, but in the top 20, most of them were going to be authority sites, so you're going to get a weak correlation.
All right, let
This
me
is this is where they really, really hurt themselves by only pulling, 20 data points, because if they'd pulled, 50 or 100, I'm sure that this probably would, have a high correlation, statistically valid, and they could say, see, this is why we do what we do. But they didn't. As far as this is concerned, only text relevance matters.
hmm.
They talk about it more on page 44 if you're looking for that, Ted.
No, I was
Oh,
trying to cross-reference it with the shared data, but there's not enough SEMrush API usage currently to call it out.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm surprised by it a bit. But you're right, yeah, because it's a top 20 study, the inconclusive probably makes more sense. All right. So here's the domain's organic positions. Now, the domain, you can often have two URLs from the same domain in the search results because they have domain level filtering and it tends to stop it too. So this doesn't surprise me that this has a 0.2. Like, that makes sense that that can happen. How often are both of them? They're often side by side. They're often not side by side. It's kind of, I see both. There's often a case where you got two results side by side at the top when your site has all the quality and the rest of the results have quality issues. That's like that outcome where you get two URLs at the top. The other one is where you have like one on page 1 and one on page 4 or one on page 2. So
Well, you're
thinking
forgetting
about it,
you're
this is
forgetting about site links, Ted. Sometimes you sit there and you'll have a listing, for your particular thing, and it'll have, menswear, women's wear, and
I'm
camping and site links on
I'm
your.
hoping they ignored site links because those are a complicating factor. Like, how would you associate a rank position with that? I suppose they could, but
Yeah,
if
it would be
they,
a tie for number three. There's four links from one site tied at number three.
yeah, I think that would be more of a study corrupter than a feature.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I'm, my intuition is they probably wouldn't have used site links as search results. And I know that they're formatted different. They would have had to code special parsers to do that. And I don't think they would have gone above and beyond to make that happen. So
Right.
I'm doubtful. Um, all right, but yeah, that's an oddball one. I don't think that's a great factor to strive for or anything. I think it happens when it happens, and it's more in Google's control than yours.
Hmm.
Domain occurrences in images. Like, this one already is confusing me.
Well, if you have an image carousel and it pulls an image from SEOtoollab.com.
Yeah, I think it's similar to that top 20. But
All
it
right,
was
so
saying,
is all right, so you're looking to it as a backlink factor. So how many people are using images from the domain? And is it internal and external or just one or the other?
no, I think it's just how many times you show up in Google Images.
Yeah.
How many times does domain show up in Google Image?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
But wait,
when I search for wool socks, I see, tedssockworld.com, but I also see an image over there that comes from tedssockworld.com.
all
So,
right, but this is a different thing. Like, web
mhm.
search is a different search engine from image search. So why are they commingling a different search engine if that's what it is?
Well,
All right,
they can have that as an external factor, even if they're not using it as, the SERP position.
where's see here it is. Insert features, maybe? How many times does a page and a domain appear in SERP features? I think you're right, Charles.
Yeah, they don't ever define it any more than that. Because that was another one that got me a little bit. I was trying to understand, are they referring to the tab images or are they referring to the images widget? Because those are two very different things and there's different algorithm around that.
Well,
But
see,
again, it's still that circular logic, like, okay, we found you here. You're in the top 20, so top 20 is a factor.
Yes.
Yeah.
all
If,
right.
if anyone hasn't realized it, it kind of breaks my brain. Circular logic breaks my brain.
Well, yeah, because really what you're right. You're sitting there and saying, how well do images, for factors ranking the top 20 correlate with ranking in the top 20? It's like, well, you have to be in the top 20 to have an image for somebody in the top 20. and then correlate it with itself.
Yeah, otherwise the suggestion would be, yeah, people that regularly get in the images that aren't in the top 20, which I'm sure happens, but it's not
And
likely.
is this an image search, or is this that thing where you get the image treatment in your search result? Because if it's the image treatment in the search result, I think it belongs in the study. And if it's inclusion in a different channel search, then I think it shouldn't even be here.
Mhm.
They're never clear. I dug through this trying to figure out, and they were
And I think point two would kind of make sense for having inclusion in the image in the search result. So the number would make sense, but I can't prove it.
Well, my interpretation, even looking at the logic that you had over there, is so I take people that are organically ranked in the top 20 and say, hey, do they also have an image in the image, feature in that, for that search? It becomes a checkbox, yes or no.
Yeah.
I'm in the top 20, and oh, look, I also have an image over in the image feature. So that's domain occurrences in images, and then we just correlate that with.
And I'll tell you right off the bat, large scale ecom enterprises, they work hard to get that image into the search results. So if they have the budget, they're going to probably get it, and people who don't have the budget aren't. And so if their keywords, which we never got visibility into, are ecom centric and enterprise caliber ecom centric, uh, well,
Yeah,
it would correlate a lot higher. So I don't think their keywords were that.
but it
So,
but it can't, because there's only 20 positions. So
oh
if
yeah,
you
that's true. If they
Walmart,
all had it.
Amazon, and Target or something like that, okay, so you got 3 out of the top 20. It's going to correlate where it's going to correlate, but it's still not high enough to uh, you know, tickle the significance number. But then it becomes, okay, all this is the presence of an authority retailer correlates with being in the top 20. Yes.
All
so
right,
you're saying I should
let's
be an authority retailer, Lee.
If
let's
you're
take
trying
a
That's
to
my
look.
compete
that's my
for retail
ranking.
keywords, yes.
That's my ranking factor. Okay, easy
All
enough.
right.
Start
So
launching.
here's an organic result with lots of images. Here's an organic result with image inclusion. Organic result, image inclusion.
Later on in the study, Ted, and I found it's on page 42, they mention in their key takeaways that images can add value, and they mention both image search results and the image features. So I think they're referring to both what you're showing right now, that images section right there,
Yeah, so if
and the
it's
actual images tab. I think they're referring to both.
yeah, but if
Yeah,
it's this, I don't think it belongs. Different search engine, different algorithm.
right.
But if it's this stuff that's in line with the search results, like these and these, then I'm all for it. But with the 20 samples, like Lee said, they blew it on the study method.
So scroll down to that images section down below that you had. What are the domains that are, I think it's a little bit lower. There it is.
So the Wish Pearl,
Shanko.
Shanko, and Blue Nile, and yeah, at least two of those are going to be in the top 20.
Right.
Like,
So it becomes Charles' favorite circular logic. It's like, images from people in the top 20
yeah,
correlate with
there's
being in the top
Shanko.
20.
So Shanko was number one. Holy crap, it's even hard finding organic
I was
results in this
just thinking
thing.
that. I was just going to say, were there only like 2 or 3 organic results in that first?
Yeah, that's what was going on. It's all merchant center shopping results.
You need to do another one of the linear square feet of scroll to figure out.
Yeah.
image density.
So Blue Nile in shopping results. Wow, Blue Nile's only in shopping results. They got screwed on this keyword. Too bad for Blue Nile. Hope they're watching.
There's still some bitterness there about some old competition, Ted.
I don't know. I don't care. Um, it's probably actually not a desirable keyword for them as a sterling silver amethyst bracelet. They are not big on sterling silver, and gemstone jewelry is not their primary focus. So I don't even know that Blue Nile would sell sterling silver. So that might be too low quality for what they offer in general.
Yeah.
So yeah, they probably don't give a crap about this keyword.
Mm-hmm.
And thus they wouldn't rank for it. All right. So let's see. URL occurrences and star ratings, page authority. So we had domain authority before. Page authority did worse in their own study. Does that
Mm-hmm.
make sense to you guys that PA is less important than DA?
It's one of those things that it depends on the data set, and certain keywords it would absolutely not make sense, and certain it would, it would. I mean, even if you go and think about local, almost all local searches will have like Yelp, Angie's List, Home Advisor, Better Business Bureau, on in the top 20. So it's going to pull some authority, even if a lot of the local sites don't have a lot of page or domain authority. It's still going to show up as a factor. And I think the same thing is probably true here. It just depends on the data set. But you're looking at this, what is it? 6 out of these 7 are all links, link related factors. So they're all clustering right here around the same correlation coefficient.
Let me see. I'm looking for a report to look at. Give me a moment while I try to find one. Let's see.
Yeah, this would be much better if they, again, if they'd have gone beyond 20, you can see the impact much better at the domain and at the URL level.
Um, Trying to find a report I can share that doesn't out a client or a customer.
DUI Lawyer Los Angeles, your old favorite.
No, yoga pants, something ecom. All right.
A lot of these factors we see, you're when you go from 100 to like 20, there's a rise, and then it kind of levels off in the top 20 or so, because to get into page 1 and page 2 you have to have backlinks and so forth. So, and in a lot of keywords, the URL level backlink number and the domain level are the same, because in a lot of keywords homepage is what ranks. So they're one and the same. So again, it depends on the keyword mix.
Yeah. And one of the things that I find interesting, so the keyword on this report is yoga pants, and I'm looking at the basic off page. So this is SEO Power Suite Backlink API data. And one of the things that I always find interesting is that the most truthy data tends to be the zero lines.
Mhm.
Because we know that there are 2 dimensions of inaccuracy in all the off-page SEO. So when you're looking at page level authority, what we often find is things like Yelp and Amazon and Walmart will often have 0 lines on their backlinks to deep internal pages. And so you shouldn't fear them, but the page authority for when that happens should be nothing, right? Because they have nothing to the page.
I don't know, Ted, because this particular one, I've seen this, and I'm trying to think in my head if I've seen it the other way with the zero lines. This one has a parameter, and sometimes the way that data sets handle parameterized URLs is they're looking for that exact parameterized URL in their data set, and they don't have it. So yeah, there's a zero line, 44, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, and this one is
Yeah,
kind of a weird one because it's a super tough keyword. So I didn't have a great one that was a less tough keyword, but here's a Nordstrom one, no parameter.
right.
Nordstrom deeply nested zeros. And the reason these zero lines are so trustworthy is because we know that there's sampling problems with backlink data. So if we took all the backlink tools, SEMRush, Ahrefs, Moz, Majestic, SEO Power Suite, we took them all and we merged them into one big super tool, they still only use a teeny tiny amount of the data Google's using. So we
Mhm.
know they have sampling issues right off the bat. And to compound that, we also know that there's accuracy issues in the fact that not all backlinks are equal. Some backlinks are really strong, and some backlinks are really weak. And so there are two dimensions of accuracy problem. And so, then the follow-up question is, Ted, if this data is so horrible, why do you even use it? The reason we use it is because we're looking for a very simple clue. Have we been neglecting off page to this page? If the data suggests that, yeah, maybe off page could help, that's a clue. But if our client history, if our knowledge of the page is that, yes, we know that the client has done nothing for off page for this URL, we don't even need data, right? We know they've neglected it. So the clue is only to help you figure out if it's been neglected. And when I see things like 1485, 85, 264, 3, 8, 144, 64, and these referring domains, to me, that is a tie. That's a tie. That's not like, oh, I got 264, I'm the winner. No, because one press release will get you a score of 500. So all of these people effectively have a fractional single press release of remnant authority. They're all duds on decline.
Mhm.
And one press release beats them all. So I consider values like this a tie score and data like this that we know has problems. Ah, end of that rant, but I just wanted to point that out because we were talking about the page authority. And so we're looking at the backlinks coming into the specific URL. And what I find so interesting about looking at that is how often the zero lines are the most honest, and the zero lines are big brands like Walmart and Yelp and uh, Amazon. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, so this one is an interesting one. I'm glad it's in the study, even if the study had issues. I think this was a very sensible one to put in there, and it's a good one to compete on. Like, how often do we say, oh, you should get a press release to this page? I mean, we're just messing with these numbers, right?
Right.
So, yeah, I think this is a worthwhile one to do. And I don't think their inconclusive reflects how often it's an important one to consider. And I know that people just go crazy over domain authority, but really, day in and day out, I see people killing it on page authority. And do you see it different ever?
You know, this is one where it's I'll go back to something I learned from you in terms of the thinking about it. You know, when you look at Amazon, you know, bazillion links to the homepage, but you're not competing with the homepage. You're competing with these, you know, individual product pages that are, you know, by the time you get down through the tree, through the categories, the subcategories, the subcategories to your particular product, that homepage authority, you know, has diminished down to almost nothing. So you're not really competing with the root. Whereas some of those, like I was looking in your data, like for yoga pants, Kira Grace, you know, retailer, and then they've got the thing is the yoga pants. It's a category. It's right under the home. So, you know, that homepage authority, you know, is going to transfer a lot of that to the subcategories, especially for them. You know, so it just depends on the structure of the site as to whether or not any of that domain authority, you know, works its way down into the leaf nodes that you're competing with, whether that's a category page or an individual product page.
Yeah, when I leverage domain scope authority in ecom, it's usually with the site-wide link on all pages, and I try to focus the lens on one thing to make it shoot to the moon. So I kind of view that DA is, you know, how much opportunity is there to focus a lens? So how much magnification does the lens have in order to burn something good?
Right.
um you know but then on, you know, any specific page, I mean, I think that PA score is really where we tend to compete normally. I don't think many people compete on domain level SEO tactics. I
No, I
mean, I
mean, but
suppose some do.
I want to say Charles is a good example of this. So in you know, when they have something going on, some world event or something like that, because he works, you know, in a news organization, you know, some of that stuff is appearing on the home page and getting some of that down, but they also have, you know, little subsections that might deal with the, you know, the crisis in New Jersey or whatever it happens to be, you know, that they're dealing with. So why don't you talk about that, Charles?
So yeah, I was going to say I actually find domain authority to be important. Um, I would say it's more important than page authority. And some of the field data I would call back to is we syndicate a lot of our content, a lot of our domains syndicate content. We have some lower authority domains where we syndicate content to, for example, Yahoo. We even delay the syndication to give Google a chance to find our article first. But often, once they find the Yahoo article, the Yahoo will grab the page one, you know, the number one listing for the article or the position in the top stories widget or something like that and push us down. It often becomes an authority play, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't think there's a page authority involved in it because Google hasn't had time to calculate the page authority. It's a brand new page. It's been out for 2, 3 hours at the most. Um, there's no way Google's has seen the entire scale yet. Um, so yeah, I think I'm on team domain authority. I don't go crazy over it, but at the same point, I understand its importance and its power. I think
Mm-hmm.
what folks often do though is they equate domain authority improperly. They think, oh, because um, Heads Rubber Widgets has a domain authority of something and it's an expired domain, I should buy it and use it to sell yoga pants. And that's different. That I don't think that it will transfer as nicely as people think it's going to transfer. Um,
But in the case that you say, you know, you have a news story and stuff like that, you're syndicating it out, you know, you put it on you for, don't a lot of those appear on your homepage? So, you know, that, you know, the power of the homepage is kind of behind that, and the power of Yahoo's categories or homepage is behind, you know, the same thing.
so actually, no, I would say the reverse because Yahoo doesn't have, I mean, for the amount of content that they bring in, not just from us, but from dozens of other syndicators, they couldn't put all the links on their homepage.
Mm,
And often most of our stuff there's a lot of stuff we put out. We just can't put it on the homepage. The homepage has a finite number of spaces to put links on.
I gotcha.
So it really has to be the top of the top. Like today, for example, there's a primary in New Hampshire. If you're not talking about the primary in New Hampshire, you might be on the homepage, but it better be a big story, and it's going to be lower down on the homepage for sure. It's all about the election today. But we'll have articles that will rank very, very well that have nothing to do with the election. We even the Iowa caucus is actually one of our best articles, had nothing to do with the election and got very little play on our homepage. But because people were searching for it, we got a lot of traffic. So my point is that there's a market for all kinds of stories out there, and we have to compete every place. Um, and that domain really does seem to hold a lot of weight.
Yeah. So where you spending your authority becomes, critical for an organization like yours.
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
would even say the freshness and uniqueness seems to hold some kind of authority over even the optimization. Not that the
yeah.
optimization is not important.
And I think that makes a lot of sense for, a news site, for a content publishing business. I think those things hold true. I think they fall apart quickly when you're a small retailer or a service provider website. Like in those cases, the roles of domain authority and page authority probably flip.
I would agree 100% because when you get into the e-commerce, you have a page, and the red yoga pants, let's just say, that page is going to be alive for weeks and weeks and months and years. It's not a flash in the pan. Our articles are often flash in the pan, and then no one, within a week, no one's searching for whatever it is ever again. Um, so yeah, the game changes if you want staying power. There's something that now you're starting to talk about page authority. Yeah, domain authority is still important, but page authority starts becoming more important. And we've discussed this, and I know Ted, you've talked about this many times in past episodes, how you can beat out Amazon because they have very weak branches.
Yep. So I'd like to talk about two more factors on here and then get to some of the viewer questions. So one of them I wanted to talk about is their featured snippet factors because they're working with featured snippets, and now I'm worried for the study. So we had a fear at the beginning that if they're including them as an organic position, that could be bad. And here they're measuring inclusion in the featured snippet and correlating with rank position. We don't know that they did this in a bad way. There's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. But boy, does its presence in the study without clarification make me very nervous for the study. Because now, if they did this, now there's one bad data point. If they did it the wrong way, there's one bad data point, and it's result number one for everything they correlated can be from anywhere in the top 100. And so when you do that to your correlations, you just messed up the study. So if they made feature snippet the best content position in the top 20, the whole study's invalid in my opinion. But they didn't clarify as to whether or not they did that. But seeing this here, I have fears. What do you think, Lee?
I agree with you 100%. Again, this goes back to, clearly defining everything, they don't have to give the whole data set, but a sample data set showing some of the calculations at play so that, somebody can replicate this and more importantly, understanding, what are the strengths and limitations of the data, the conclusions, the methodology, et cetera.
So we don't know that they did the bad thing because they didn't tell us about what they did. So we just don't know. But I have fear in seeing that. I know some people like to go for the featured snippets in ecom. I always hated them. They never converted for me in terms of getting $40 average cart conversions. So I always avoided them like the plague. And when my competitors went aggressively for competing for them, I loved it because trying to get the featured snippet typically wrecks your SEO in most cases. So I love seeing my competitors compete for something that wrecks their SEO. So yeah, I was always happy to avoid that. And it could be a psychological thing. It could people be that people with shopping on the mind want to get past the featured snippet and get to somebody selling something. So you don't want to be an informational answer to a shopping intent query. That might be, what the issue is, in which case it's a psychological human behavior why it's not ideal for ecom and not necessarily an SEO or rank position thing. Any thoughts on that, on featured snippet being good, bad, or otherwise?
I don't have any tested data on that, so I would just be throwing out a guess. Don't like
I
that.
hear a lot of people saying they kill it with featured snippets and they like that it's a short code to go from page 4 to position 0. Like that's the big argument why people do it is it can save you more expensive SEO costs if you can win them easily. So I think that's probably the big argument is if you constantly get stuck on page 3 or 4, this might be a short code to getting some top of page ones.
Right.
Um, but if you're good at getting number 1 organically, then featured snippet is probably something you hate because you don't need it and it converts less.
Right.
All right, the last one I wanted to touch on was going to be everybody's favorite factors, core web vitals, hovering at close to a 0 correlation. And so what's awesome about this is that it matches every study I've seen done on core web vitals being a ranking factor, and the answer is unanimously inconclusive, doesn't look like it does anything. Any thoughts on core web vitals, boosting or not boosting websites in your opinion?
Yeah, the data that we did, I did a study on this, exhaustive. Clint did a bigger, badder exhaustive study. Other people have replicated this stuff. Core Web, and even Google has said Core Web Vital is not a ranking factor. So it's not surprising, but also, again, given the limitations of this study, even if it were a factor, for the most part, it would be hard to tell, given that they only looked at the top 20. So,
Yep.
yeah. So it's kind of, there's an ironic element that it's damn near 0, but it's still the data doesn't actually tell you anything because it might be a ranking factor and we wouldn't know because the limits of the number of data points that they pulled.
Yeah, all this data actually tells us is the study was inconclusive. So that's the only thing this data says is it was inconclusive.
Yeah.
I
All right.
like I like that the lab results were less valuable than the field data too. So everyone who goes to that lighthouse and says, "Oh, lighthouse says this." I've tried to explain to folks, it doesn't matter what lighthouse says, it matters what the field data is, but it's kind of a moot point because none of it matters.
Yeah. All right. So let me stop sharing and we will go to some YouTube questions. I gotta find where I had the pop out. All right, looks like we got some activity here. Let me switch to live questions so I see all messages. Uh, all right, so Dre DeVera says hello and good morning. Uh, Glad to see you here. He runs the SEO video show. He does the interviews of all the big personalities in our industry. So if you're looking for some good SEO content to consume, check out SEO video show on YouTube. Let's see. Does a URL need to be set to index to be able to pass on link juice? I don't believe so. I believe the research as we understand it is that a URL could even be penalized into non-existence in search and still boost a page. So I haven't seen any new research that counteracts that, but I also haven't seen new research on that at all. So I would like to see new studies, but I think the most recent research I've seen on the topic is that even penalize pages pass link juice. What do you think, Lee?
Yeah, same thing. And I haven't seen anything different. And I know that um, people that play in the expired domain space, there are even people that will play in the burned domain space for those reasons. So,
Yep. But be careful with toxic domains because they can get you filtered out of search if you mishandle them. And so you typically need to be careful and use intermediate pages to do this properly. So if you start playing with really spammy backlinks, be sure to test in a safe place, safe manner. Do not test on your clients, or you'll learn the hard way that bad links can do bad things, but all links can boost pages if you know what you're doing. And so that's the important part, if you know what you're doing. Um, how can I make agency SEO more fun? Um, that kind of depends on your corporate culture. All right. So I once was doing contract work for construction companies, roadside construction companies that were trying to go paperless. So I was taking all of the bureaucratic forms they had and turning them into an iPad app. And what I realized in working with these road crews is they're, 16-hour day family guys, and their kids kind of look up to him as the big hero, big truck, big tools, that type of thing. So it's kind of like this recurring pattern here. So I started putting in Easter eggs for the kids. So when they'd go into a form and there was a field for roadside hazards for insurance disclosure, I'd allow for various ridiculous things. If you put in raptors into the roadside hazards, a velociraptor would scream across the iPad app. So I intentionally put in Easter eggs so that these workers could show their kids what they do and there were fun things to do in the app. So if, it's weird in an agency, like how can you do it because everyone's so dry and business focused? How can you gamify? How can
mhm.
you make it something exciting that you want to participate in? How can you make it more social? If everybody is disparate, how can you communicate better and in positive ways? How can you encourage? How can you reward people? How can people talk about it to their families and not go, oh no, they're talking about SEO again? So, do I have great answers to that question? No, but I do think it's possible. I bet there are agencies out there that already have good ideas. I bet if you went and asked 10 different agencies, you'd probably walk away with some pretty good ideas. What do you think, Lee?
I had a variation of this question this morning. I was talking with somebody about testing, and a lot of times, as you know, Ted, testing, you're setting up page after page after page, or domain after domain, or you're doing image after image, video after whatever it is that you're testing. You're doing a lot of this stuff that's a lot of copy paste drudgery. And I said, when I'm doing something like that, I might have the radio on playing, my favorite stuff, and I'm singing out loud to this stuff because, copy paste doesn't require that much attention. Or, I might be listening to a podcast or something else just to, increase the amount of stimulation of, the work environment, because a lot of what we do is solo, and it's just sitting there and doing that thing. So if you're doing stuff that isn't a lot of deep thinking, a lot of things are open to you. So also you can gamify the work. All right. If it takes me normally 10 minutes to do, a particular task and I've got 6 of them, that would normally take me an hour. Can I do it in 50 minutes? Can I do it in 49 minutes? You can play these little games with yourself to make the day pass and make the tasks more
Yeah,
enjoyable.
if it's that's a great one. If it's you and 3 other SEOs trying to get through a queue of optimizations on pages, whoever does the least buys coffee.
Hmm.
Boom. Now you've made a sport of it.
Yeah. And then, then you've got the inevitable. I still think Terry should buy coffee, even though I lost because he had this page that was easier, whatever. And, it becomes fun because it becomes a more collegial environment. You're doing something to get everybody engaged in something. So if you have that office environment, but a lot of SEO agencies are virtual as well. So, I'm in my office, Ted's in his office, Charles in his office, etc.
Yeah, if you're a manager, don't make the employees buy coffee. Just have whoever wins the game gets a Starbucks card. Just easy reward. It's not a big loss if you lose, so nobody's gonna feel bad if they lose out on a $15 coffee card. All right. So let's see. I see site after site get destroyed after helpful content update. All right, and that's interesting because I don't see that in my corner of SEO.
Mhm.
Is there any data or evidence about what factors changed? Well, the thing that we've known for years is that when you eliminate your factor deficits, you tend to weather these Google updates better. And it's gotten to a point where the only way I even know that an update is happening is either people come screaming to me about it, or I find things got slow or difficult to index new content. And so those are my 2 indicators that updates are even happening. And what we think is happening is that Google is bouncing coefficients. They might be adding new factors, but by and large, they're balancing. So they're changing the coefficient of factor A versus the coefficient of factor B. And so they're saying things like, oh, backlinks count less and exact matches count more towards your ranking score. And so when that happens, depending upon which you were strong in and which you were weak in, you will either go sharply up or sharply down because of that algorithm change. But what that is telling you, whether you went sharply up or sharply down, is that you have gaps in your SEO. And at the next update, you might have been sharply up this time, feeling good. I'm on top of the world. But don't feel safe because if they revert the thing they changed, what's going to happen? They're going to go sharply down. Why? Because they have gaps in their SEO. So, if you're being impacted by Google updates, step one is to get some data from whatever tool set of your choice on how you're different from higher ranking competitors and eliminate those differences. Because when you're strong in both backlinks and exact matches, and Google flips the coefficients, you just kind of coast through unchanged. And so, yeah, I would say that they're neglecting probably some category of their SEO and they need to stop neglecting the category. Lee?
I like the term Swiss cheese SEO in these sort of things because I've seen that over and over again. And in the absence of helpful content or or review updates or stuff like that, most of the time when I see these sites that have been hit by updates and I just look at them through the template of solid SEO, I see holes in that. So I can't tell you that it was the review update or the reviews, or whether it was helpful content or whether it was spam links or whatever else that got you, it just looks like you're missing some things just in general, in the absence of these named updates. So I'm with you 100% on that. I have not seen any data that suggests that there's anybody that's identified what helpful content is or isn't, or whether it's in play at the current time. So
Yeah, we have
I see
theories.
some data. It's all going to be all about the standard on page, off page stuff.
Yep. And we have theories about it, but I haven't even seen two theories on what helpful content update is be in agreement. So, yeah, you ask 10 SEOs, you probably get 10 definitions on what it even is. So I would get some data on how you're different and work from the data. I've gone from a website with 1 million a month SEO traffic to 65K. Yeah, that's a heavy hit. That usually means you went from page one to below page one significantly. Um, so yeah, but the other thing, don't lose all hope. I've seen Google roll back. I've seen people bounce back on those. If you're still in the rankings, you're still in play, and it's probably something about your behaviors of how you're tuning, and you can change your behaviors on how you're tuning if you're still in the game. The things you got to worry about are when you go from having a number one 100% of search to now you're page two and 10% of search, or you know page 20, 10% of search. If that happens, if you're invoking that time sharing volatility, that's usually a lot more scary than dropping to spot 90. And again, I often don't even care about rank position anymore, because the difference from going from number 12 to number one, or from number 98 to number one, there's almost no difference. It's the exact same amount of work you have to do to get there. So I don't really sweat the rank position. What I sweat is the health of the website and the health of the ranking. Can I get fast turnaround time on my on-page SEO to help rebound it? Can we do off-page SEO to help rebound it? Are there no underlying technical problems that would prevent SEO from working? Those are the bigger concerns.
Yeah, I'm going to just share a quick story, Ted. At the Digital Unfiltered, we had a speaker panel, and one person in the audience said, "Oh, I was just recently hit by the XYZ update. I don't remember which one it was." And any advice? And a lot of panelists were getting advice. They came to me, and I said, "What makes you think that it was the update that hit you? It could have been this or this." A couple of weeks after the conference, the person reached out to me and said, "Hey, thank you for that. I hadn't thought about that. I looked, and it wasn't my entire site. It was certain pages, and those certain pages had a script on it that broke. And when I fixed the script, all the pages came back." So the fact that the update was there, was there. And I recently had a large site that was hit because the XML sitemap plugin broke, and the XML sitemap started kicking out 404 errors. And Google doesn't like it when it thinks that all your pages are gone. So, it might be something as simple as that. So I would do a little technical audit on your site before thinking that, it's an update that's got you, because you can see a site tank like that with a technical issue.
I would agree
Speak.
100% with that, Lee. I mean, so this goes back to the correlation versus causation in the whole SEMRush study. We had a explosion of 404s on one of our sites, and it correlated perfectly with the launch of a new Google bot. I went into our log files. Yep, it's got to be Google. It's got to be Google. It wasn't Google. It was us. We put out a bad XML sitemap, and on the exact same day, pretty much the same time that the new bot started hitting us. So it's easy to blame Google. Sometimes it's internal.
Mm-hmm.
Along the same lines of topic, Do you have any idea why my web page keeps popping in and out of the SERPs? Like I literally be page 1, position 3 average, and then not indexed, and then jump back into. We call this type of volatility time sharing. It is the worst kind of problem you can have because time sharing is either a underlying technical SEO issue, so a project you need to solve that's different than ranking the page, or you are relevant in a way where Google thinks you might be relevant to be included for this keyword, but you might not be relevant to be included. And so if Google is wondering if you even belong in this search, that's a big problem. All right. There are several things that can happen, like if your tools are measuring the top 100 search results, it could be that you're bouncing between, being top 100 and being top 200. And so technically, you're not leaving search in a case like that. You're just having extreme volatility shifts. Um, you would want to get some diagnostics on it, and unfortunately, there's only one thing I know of that can even look at that at the moment. I suppose there's two. You can get a highly technical SEO with a lot of experience to look at it, or you need to find someone with Cora to spend 2 minutes and run a volatility tool that'll give you the nature of the volatility. It won't tell you what the exact problem is, but it'll confirm what you're seeing and to what degree. And it will look at a couple of common issues like, is it cannibalization? Is it you have another page that's popping in your stead at a lower position and you're just not seeing it? Is it Google split testing? Is Google picking text off your page for title and summary? And when they pick one piece of text, you're in the search. And when they pick another piece of text, you're out of the search. Google can do that to you. Um, so yeah, you would need to diagnostically figure out why you have that volatility. And odds are it's a technical issue or you have very poor relevancy for the keyword, and Google isn't sure that you belong. What do you think, Lee?
No, that's perfect. That was perfect.
Charles, any thoughts on in and out of search?
The only note I would make is that just yesterday, Google acknowledged there was an issue where their words, a very narrow issue that caused temporary fluctuation in search results for a small number of websites. So it could, I'm not saying it is, but it could be a Google bug. Oh, and by the way, this bug that Google acknowledged isn't in their search status dashboard either. So thanks, Google.
Sweep it under the rug. All right. Let's see. Um, all right. How do you think the SGE will affect publishers? So I haven't actually studied SGE a lot. I know what it is, I've tinkered with it, but I wouldn't call myself an expert on its impact for various industries. So odds are you probably have better knowledge on this issue than I do. But putting on my thinker's cap for years down the road, um, I think you probably want your content to be trained upon by these large language models. You want inclusion in the answer engine so that you can be part of that exposure. And if the answer engine is doing lists of things, you probably want to rank well in the lists they're doing. So you're kind of at the forefront of AI optimization. How do I get included? How do I get presented well? And the only hypothesis we have on that at the moment is you need to control a lot of sites, and they need to agree on you on various lists of things, so that when these models go and find all these lists of things, you are commonly a top ranker. And so that's a very brute force way to try to trick a large language model. Probably very expensive to do, definitely time consuming, because, training these things isn't all the time. Um, yeah, I mean, you're at the cutting edge of AIO in my opinion, and I don't think we have best practices yet. What do you think, Lee?
No, it's way too early. I've talked to people about this particular thing. AI is evolving. People's use of AI is evolving. Market adoption of AI is evolving. The law around AI is evolving. So there's really no way to say where we're going to be in 6 months, a year, because there's too many things that can shift the path hard left or right. Even in Ted's explanations, like right now, you want to make sure that you get included by these AI models. But there are circumstances where laws and other things where they can just take your stuff and use it however they want, in which case you'd want to block all the AI models. But we don't know, which is the path that the law is going to take, which is the path search engines are going to take, what the marketplace demands are going to be, and what the other developments in the tool sets and capabilities are going to be. So the only thing I would say is just keep watching and to see if we can, figure out what direction it's ultimately going to end up. But right now it's way early. There are roads that go in almost every direction from here that are plausible. So
Let's see. We
hold on a
have a
second. Ted, we also have Terry here. Terry, did you have a thought on this particular? Because I know you play a lot with AI. I didn't know if you had something extra to throw out there.
You can optimize for SGE, put it that way.
So there you go. I don't think Terry wants to share how just yet.
Well, that just lets people know, hey, go test. Go test.
But if you know it's possible, then you probably know to go look. All right. So let's see. We have a lot from Honey. I'm going to assume she was answering somebody.
Yeah, she said skip all that.
Okay. All right. If one is running multiple sites with various dodgy strategies, for research purposes only, of course, is there a need to keep them on separate Search Console servers? If you're doing things that are potentially unlawful, then yeah, you probably don't want to commingle that with your clients or anything. You probably don't want to do it to begin with. If you're doing things that are just against the guidelines, I mean, to a less extent, I don't think you have to worry as much. But if those things border on areas like click fraud or any type of scammy thing, or clicking on people's ads or violating those types of terms, you don't want to do it, because Google will nuke around a radius of the infraction. So if you have an employee that's doing SEO for your legitimate business, and that employee has a personal account that isn't the business account, and they go and click on their own ads, like, everyone in the radius of that click fraud person might get banned from AdSense. And I've seen that happen to businesses, and I've seen Google hold those grudges for over a decade. And so, yeah, just note that Google doesn't come down on the individual every time. Sometimes they will get everybody in proximity to an individual. And that's why for agency SEO and for enterprise in-house SEO, it's good to give everyone who works on your stuff a fresh, clean company email to make a Google account with. Don't let them use their personal email. Don't, give them a clean standard that you can then take away and remove after the engagement is done. And that gives you some protection from being in the radius of somebody's personal bad behavior. Lee, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, though, and my because I've done this, I still do this from time to time, and my guidelines are simple. My money sites and stuff like that, I keep that separate from my test sites in terms of Google profiles and things like that. Because if Google decides they want to take something down, they are going to take stuff down in the radius. But there have been times, like there was one time when a friend of mine and I decided to see if we could construct a situation and trap a Google bot on a site and measure how long we could keep it trapped. For that, you're talking about new IPs, new fingerprints, new hosting, new everything else to keep it as far away, because that has a high chance of ending up on an engineer's desk at Google for investigation. And so you don't want that anywhere near, because of the potential for them to get very punitive. So those are my guidelines.
And if you want a real world example of Google targeting the radius, when Kyle Roof did rhinoplasty plano, they didn't just punish the page and Kyle Roof, they punished all of Kyle's clients. And so you can ask him about that experience, but that's an example of Google applying a blast radius as part of the punishment. All right, so where were we? Yeah, Honey mentioned footprints. For stuff that's just, low quality, maybe spammy, maybe SEO testing, I don't have a lot of worry about it. So, I mean, you really have to push something more serious than that to bring down the ban hammer. So, keep that in mind too.
Something like feeding Google's results to itself.
Yeah, there are activities that'll get you a pretty quick cease and desist. Don't do those. All right. Somebody mentions against the guidelines, not against the law. So yeah, those types of things tend to fly under the radar more easily. Just note that whenever you're doing something that has monetary damage or is misleading searchers, those are the things Google gets most aggressive about on a very quick pace. So avoid things with monetary damages or outright mislead searchers. Um, let's see, fantastic show every week. I
Thank
love
you.
Google updates. Every update, my rankings improve, and for more keywords, great. Keep up the good work. Who follows the guidelines? I look at them. I like to know them. They give me lots of ideas for things to test. So I follow them in the regard that I want to know what they're saying. I don't necessarily follow them in regards to I do everything they tell me to do. So, I follow them out of interest, not out of instruction. All right. And that's it. Thank you, everyone. Another great show. We will see you next week.
Good show.